Welcome to another edition of Two Irish Guys Discussing Software. We're here again with one Irish guy. We're with one Indian guy and one guy from all the way who's going to join us all the way from Florida. In a moment, we'll introduce you to Vinnie Mirchandani. We will be joined by him shortly. Harry, it's great to talk to you again. Last time we spoke, I was in Sydney. I'm back in Dublin now. I'm sitting here. You're still in San Francisco, are you?
I'm still in San Francisco. Since we last spoke, always great to be here and continue the conversation, Tomás. Yeah.
Brilliant. Today's episode, last time we spoke about mainframes. This is about the IT roadmap mindset, okay? We're trying to get people to shake up the status quo. We're trying to get people to think differently. As they said during the Brexit campaign, we want people to take back control. Hopefully this time they'll do it right. So listen, we have a great show today. We're going to have a couple of things we're going to chat about. We will be joined very shortly by Vinnie Mirchandani, who is also a host of his own podcast, the Burning Platform series. He is a ex-consultant with PwC. He spent some time with Gartner, and he's a person who understands the software industry very, very well and has been around long enough, like myself and yourself, Harry, to have a very good understanding of some of the challenges around the IT roadmap and the pressures that people are put under. Before we pull Vinny in a moment, we're going to pull him in a second. I just wanted to have a little conversation with you about what's happening in the market. When we spoke about, particularly to do with my IBM. When we spoke when I was in Sydney 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had been talking about the mainframe and the fact we visited that conversation. Did you see, and I know you did you see IBM's Q3 results, $14 billion, and the mainframe with double-digit growth? That is impressive, isn't it?
Not surprising at all. In fact, if you go back and listen to it, that's one of the points we made. These numbers were not, I don't believe, were released then, but I had a very strong feeling that they will continue that strong trajectory of mainframe growth. So what it does say, Tomás, is mainframes, I think, which is the gist of the podcast last time, mainframes are here to stay. IBM is doubling down. They are investing in mainframes. They're focused on mainframes. So we talked about all the different ways that it's not a possibility. There's nothing even coming close in terms of scalability, robust strength, and security. So, nope, not surprising at all. I bet it continues to thrive from here.
I mean, it's amazing to think. I mean, they talk about an IT roadmap. The roadmap for the mainframe is they actually, to be fair to IBM, they have one. We give them an awful stick on this show, and deservedly so in many cases. But when you look at what people are trying to do, if you think about digital, one of the things we were talking about the last time when I was in Australia, we were talking about what happened with digital transformation, the journeys that people have been on traditionally, and particularly through COVID, when it was all about infrastructure. It was all about getting digital platforms and technology into people's hands and people's homes. It was looking at process improvements. It was looking at employee productivity improvements, speed to market. That's all changed now. It is all about customer satisfaction increases, selling more, using technology to sell more, and using technology to hold on to your customers for longer. I mean, the mainframe clearly has a role in that. I mean, we've talked about this before. Some of this traditional technology is going to be around for a little bit longer. So it's fascinating. I did love, though, I mentioned earlier at the top of the show, the taking back control. I love the optimism of the IBM UK head, who was quoted yesterday in the Daily Telegraph in the United Kingdom, saying that Brexit is going to be good for the UK. So I love his powers of prediction. So listen, Harry, we'll bring in Vinny on that note. Vinny, we're talking about taking back control. Welcome, Vinny, to our show. I'm delighted to have you. Both myself and Harry have been on your show. You're in Florida, is that right?
Tomás, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. Great to see both of you. I'm in Florida. We survived Hurricane Ian. It was supposed to come directly for Tampa.
I remember you telling me you were right on its path, right, Vinny?
Yeah, the local legend is native spirits. There's some Indian mounds here, not far from us. They watch over us. So we've had several direct hit hurricanes turn right or left at the last minute, and happened again.
Wow.
Too bad for Fort Myers and that community, but it was good for us. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. And Vinny, before we step in and get into the serious conversation, you have an Irish connection, don't you?
I do. My wife, Margaret, was born in Longford on a dairy farm. So she still can get rid of her accent, still uses terms like Sod's Law and, can you close the boot and stuff like that? So yes.
Yeah, we have a particular set of turn of phrases that are difficult to get rid of. Brilliant. Well, that allows us to keep the trend going with the two Irish guys. Well, because we have Harry O'Candadai.
Yeah, that's right. We talked about that last time. Harry, I'm beginning to like the ring of it. Harry O'Candadai.
We're going to talk about some stuff. Harry, I was going to ask you. You've been looking at some reports. Back to this whole area of the IT roadmap. That's where we really want to get Vinny's views on this. The shaking up of the status quo. Yeah. Oh, you've been looking at what people are saying out there. There's been some interesting recent reports and studies on some things that are.
I was just curious, Vinny. With the potential recession looming, with all these weather stormy economic conditions. So we're not in many industries out of the woods yet, right? And there's a lot of focus. I was just curious, what are C-level priorities? So I just went around and, started looking up some articles, and there's some great studies out there. The one that comes to mind is an Accenture report. And they say that, this is over 2,000 C-suite executives. 7 in 10 say that they have a cost transformation initiative at the top of their agenda. Cost transformation, cost optimization came up a lot in my research. Not cost cutting that's also important, but I believe that companies are looking, they're still investing in great technologies, but they're very picky and choosy where they invest. Is that what you're seeing as well, Vinny? Because prioritizing every single investment is a theme that I found in some of the research I've been doing.
Harry, it's not just cutting costs or optimizing costs. There's also a huge innovation prerogative. I mean, in the last 2 years, I've had a chance to work with a couple of executives and companies on their innovation strategies. And you look at industry after industry. If you're in the auto industry, you're moving away from the engineering hardware culture to a much more software-centric culture, right? There's something called ACE, which is connected, autonomous, shared, electrified. The changes that are happening there, where people are looking at direct-to-consumer, getting rid of the dealers. If you look at all the electrification, the charge points and all that, that's just one industry, right? Over and over again during COVID, we saw people had to move quickly. If you were in healthcare, if you didn't have telemedicine or outpatient care, you were basically stuck with no revenues, right? If you were a retailer, if you didn't offer last mile delivery or curbside pickup, you were stuck, right? So the speed at which innovation is expected, and yet you've got all these long-term contracts, legacy systems that just suck up so much of those dollars for so little value. I think that balancing act is putting a lot more pressure on the C-level suite. And, let's face it, the C-level suite has seen early digital transformation successes, right?
Right.
They're like, why can't we do it?
Absolutely.
But why are we spending so much money on 40-year-old systems, right?
Yep. And that's the problem, right? You hit upon it, Vinny. Why are we not able to do it? I believe the big problem, and you know it, and there are so many studies, 90% or so of a typical IT budget goes towards keeping the lights on, leaving 10% or in many cases even less than that to do all the initiatives that's going to move the needle, as they say, for your business, right? Increase revenue, decrease cost, take market share from competition, all the examples that you mentioned in the medical and the transportation industry. But that's the problem. A lot of that is still tied up in your current budget. And that's another theme I picked up, Vinny, in recent research. It will be great to get your thoughts. You did not mention, neither did any of my research mention the focus or the importance of keeping the lights on. Well, it's important, but there's no talk about back office systems. Hey, I'm going to invest in a $10 million upgrade or Gone are those days. You focused on technology, or you talked about innovation. Do you see that? Would you agree with that theme and that thinking, that companies are looking at all these technologies that's going to advance them digitally, right? AI, cybersecurity, data analytics, you name it. Do you see the same thing, and not the focus on the back office systems as much?
So you mentioned upgrades, right? Well, first of all, one thing that does get, when it comes to legacy applications, cybersecurity gets, right? That's an investment boards are willing to make, just because consequences of that are,
Optimizing comes up a lot, I find. Simplifying what you have, automating, those are the key words that CIOs that I'm hearing, CIOs, C-leaders focused on, Vinnie. Another interesting theme here is all the innovation that you mentioned. There's also a lot of conversation about how much of it is coming from the major vendors today versus the faster, cheaper, more nimbler solution providers that can bring a lot of these innovations quickly to the table. Any views on that? Because the articles say
most of the innovation that I'm seeing tends to be very industry specific, and in that it tends to be very operational, right? So if you go to the energy sector now, every utility is looking at either moving to renewables, or they're looking at, some different form of low carbon transition, right? That's not going to come from just changing your IT. It's going to come from, the oil companies are looking at carbon capture. They're looking at extracting hydrogen from methane as a way of next generation energy. There's a lot of operational technology that is calling for investment, not just let me just move my old from one server to another. That's not getting much attention.
No, not at all. And the last point, Vinnie, and I'll hand it back over to Tomás here. But the fact is, I think in situations like, tough times like these, especially for the IT executives, while the spending is not fully tightened up, but they've become so much more smarter at looking at the right investments to make. And along with that, the ability to explore options, right? In almost every case, there is a choice today, and choice means competition. Competition means best value back to you for the dollars that you're making the investment in. But any final thoughts before we hand it over to Tomás? I appreciate all your insights, but just wanted to see if you had anything else to add to what we talked about. Yep.
I come from the Gartner world, Tomás, as you mentioned. In the studies that I've been doing the last couple of years, I've dealt with more analysts that don't understand IT at all. The energy analysts, they're mobility analysts for the auto sector, the healthcare analysts, and so on. It's become, IT is an underlying element of the fabric of every industry, but the real investment is going into the operational aspects of all these industries. So, we've had a great run in IT. We need to become a lot broader in our approach, because all those industries do need our technology backgrounds, but it's got to be at the very, very verticalized level.
Sure.
Can I just could be stepping in there? Thanks. I think that's a great conversation, and it's a good lead into bringing us back to the theme of our conversation here about the IT roadmap. And I guess, given my background as kind of a bit of an agitator, I guess you could say, with free ICT work I've done in Europe and more recently in the US, do we think it's a battleground with the mega vendors always? It seems like it's constantly the next upgrade, the end of support, all those challenges that exist in the software world. And you would know this in your vast experience in the SAP world, Vinnie, I'm sure. I mean, is it fair? Is it fair that the software vendors control this? Given what you've just been speaking with Harry there about how important technology is, and especially in the operational side of things, and it's critical. It's absolutely critical. It's the lifeblood of organizations, but they control the roadmap to a significant extent. Is that fair?
It is if you let them, right? McKinsey recently had a really, really provocative, prophetic statement. They said during COVID, they saw boards, say, hey, like I mentioned, telemedicine or last curbside pickup. They said, we've got to do it, otherwise we'll be out of business, right? It was an existential threat. And guess what? Companies were able to do it in 2 and 3 weeks. So boards are spoiled now. They're like, what the hell are you coming back to me with 2-year projects, 4-year projects, right? I want speed. I want value right away. trust me, the big vendors, if they don't move to that mindset, they're not going to get their big projects funded, right? So we moved into a whole new world. By the way, McKinsey said, if their projection is right, we're entering probably the most innovative decade mankind has ever seen. Okay, I mean, that's quite a prophetic statement. But we won't be able to do it by just upgrading an old legacy system or doing an ERP upgrade or a CRM upgrade. There's a lot more customer-facing operational investments that need to be made. And the big vendors will have a role, certainly, but they're not going to control the roadmap. It's back to the smart CIO who's got control to be able to deliver to that expectation.
So the CIO needs to take what we said at the beginning, to trying to take back control. And it sounds to me, that example you've given from the McKinsey report, the traditional way of doing things, IT transformation today is about selling. It's about finding new customers and finding new channels to drive business.
New business models, right? So the theme that I did for the last project, it was about new medicine, new energy, new mobility, new channels, new business models, et cetera, et cetera. If it's not new, it's not differentiating. So, yeah.
I like what you said, Vinnie, at the top of this particular segment. You know, it's fair if you let them take control of the roadmap of the major vendors, as we are speaking about here, because that's the question I think every CIO in times like these, I think every C-level executive needs to be asking is, whose roadmap is it, in my opinion? Whose roadmap is it? And I think that will lead to the conversation. How do you take control? Have you given up control to an extent that it's benefiting the mega vendors, or is it benefiting your business? Interesting questions. It goes back to what we spoke about in some of the research that I've been doing is you need a choice. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, right? It's that thinking about asking the question, whose roadmap is it, and are you in control?
You know, Harry, you hear the word composable application architecture a lot.
Yeah.
Even from the vendors, grudgingly, you're hearing that. What that means is people are buying a lot more at the modular, almost feature level. They're using APIs, they're using smaller vendors, etc. And I constantly ask Gartner, my former employers, why do you guys still make Magic Quadrants at the ERP or CRM level? Nobody buys ERP and implements it at one go. It takes years. You got to start talking about smaller elements of, if it's going to be composable, if you truly believe in composable, quit trying to force people to buy big, the vendors love it because, if you can make a big ERP sale, it's one big sale. The reality is most companies don't consume that way. It just is too hairy, too difficult to consume at that course level.
Vinnie, then, what does that mean for the traditional IT spending patterns? Is it turning some of those on their head? Are we seeing different patterns now in the more innovative organizations?
I absolutely don't do that. They're starting to see very lumpy revenue streams. I mean, we've been seeing this evolution for 20 years, right? Moving to the cloud was a different model. The transaction values became smaller. So, it's an evolution. They keep dreaming about, hey, look, we can still do the mega elephant hunting. The reality is, it continues to happen in some cases, but a lot more is being bought at the consumable, smaller, modular level.
Because there was some research that we saw from Forrester from a couple of years ago, looking at the size of amount of money spent for perpetual license software maintenance at about $180 billion was estimated in that category. And when you think about the category, enterprise software estimates between $500 billion and $600 billion. So it's about a third almost of the total spend in that bucket. Incidentally, the second biggest technology budget portion. So even though the patterns are changing, and I accept that this is a moving feast and that number is declining, It stayed, by the way, one of our views on this, and I'm beginning to get your thoughts on this, I'm asking you a two-pronged question here, is that one of the reasons that number stayed stubbornly high, despite the growth in cloud and the move to subscription-based models, is the practice within many of the large enterprise software vendors, including ERP, but all of the software vendors, not just the ERP guys, of doing software audits. And the software audits was propping up some of the license sales and the subsequent maintenance revenue that came off that for many, many years. That some of that trend is beginning to change now because they're trying to switch them to the cloud on the back of the software audit. So what I call the shakedown. So that's my two-pronged question to you, Vinnie. Go.
So Thomas, two things, right? When you look at it from a CEO board level perspective, they look at it and they go, well, IT spend is 2%, 2.5%. If you go to them and say, a third of that is maintenance, they go, it's 0.8%. It doesn't often get to their level of excitement, right? If you were to go to them and say, I can show you how to cut out 6%, trust me, they'd be all over you. But it's quite often for many companies, only 0.5% of revenues just doesn't get to that level of excitement, okay? Now, to your point about shakedowns and all that, I mean, that is the last hurrah for the traditional model. What they're doing is they are basically squeezing the last, drop out of the stone, if you will, juice out of the stone. But I can tell you this, every vendor who tries that, I can show you CIOs who have a freeze policy. Screw me this time, I won't buy anything new from you for the next 5 years, okay? So this is a model that works for some vendors, but they are basically burning the future when they try that tactic. Okay?
Yeah.
So, will it disappear? No, because, the cost of migrating from a legacy application is the biggest holdback for many companies. So they'll, like I said, they look at it and they go, okay, let's just pay the maintenance. It's only 0.5% of our revenues, right? But are they rewarding that vendor going forward? Absolutely not.
But I think you're right. The percentage is low, but it's of the available money, it's high. So if your total budget is $100 million, let's say, the average customer has 10 million available to spend on innovation.
Talking to a CIO, you will get his attention. No argument at all.
Yeah.
I'm not saying if you go one level above or you go to the board level, it's tough to get their attention when the amount is not much bigger. When they look at the total revenues and they say growth, and they're more excited about, hey, I can help you grow. When it comes to cost cutting, the big numbers get their attention.
Yeah, true. But is there not an argument, Vinnie, would you not say, that going back to the roadmap and the control over the roadmap, it's kind of like they're in their ecosystem, and it's not just the money side of things. It's potentially the lack of options that exist, or often feels to be that it don't exist, because they feel they've invested so much with a particular kind of platform, let's say, and the amount of consolidation that's existed with a number of these vendors. They've tried to control the ecosystem in the same way, if you wanted to have an app for a phone in the morning and you developed it, you couldn't go to market without gauging Apple or Google. Just impossible. You wouldn't be able to sell it. You'd have to play by their rules. It's not quite the same extent with business software, but there are customers who feel that they have invested so much with, let's say it's SAP or it's Oracle or it's IBM, that they have felt today, or even Microsoft, they have no choice. 5
years ago, I wrote SAP Nation a decade ago, probably 2 then. But even then, I was seeing customers starting to use strategies like ring fence. They were not investing in the core. They were investing in modules, cloud applications around it, and so on. So it's a long journey, but very little money if it's going towards legacy maintenance, it's all reluctant money. And if they're being squeezed into it, trust me, those vendors are not being rewarded.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the innovation you see from, say, people like us and other players in the market and other ideas that exist, not just necessarily our own, that reluctant money, there are ways of changing the way they spend that money, aren't there?
Absolutely. I mean, if you could say to them, the model you have delivers better service, saves them half the money. The only reluctance is, hey, Origina is a small company. That would be the only hesitation point. most of them are happy to show me those options. I mean, you've got a great value proposition.
I like your pitch.
Look, how many hundreds of customers have already rewarded you? Keep doing what you're doing. The dam will keep leaking. It won't necessarily burst overnight. You won't be able to handle it if it bursts overnight. But a steady flow of legacy support will keep coming to you. Keep doing what you're doing, Thomas.
Thank you, Vinnie. Thank you. Listen, Vinnie, before we go, let you go there. Tell us, what are you working on at the moment, and to tell our audience?
I've had, like I said, a couple of years of very, very mind-blowing innovation exposure, right? When I look at what energy companies are doing in terms of low carbon, it could be nuclear, next generation nuclear, it could be next generation wind and solar, or carbon capture, or the hydrogen economy. I mean, there is so much exciting stuff. It's stuff sitting in Europe. You're looking at a winter that's going to be tough. It's tough to get excited. There is so much exciting stuff happening in energy that, in 5 years, we may have a glut of energy. Hard to believe, but we may have a glut, right? When you look at what's happening in mobility, right? The move to electrification. My God, we're moving into a whole new world of EV charging, lithium and so on, that was unthinkable a few years ago. So there's just get away from the tic-tac IT routines, and there is so much exciting stuff happening that, I almost sound too optimistic about what's coming down the pike.
Stay that way. Stay that way, Vinnie.
We need more optimism these days.
For sure. Brilliant, Vinnie. Listen, thank you for joining us. Harry, another show. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Always enjoy these conversations. And Vinnie, as always, learn something from you every time. Love the topic. So apt and so timely.
Glad you didn't give me 6 hours. I could use up 6 hours with all the stuff I've learned in the last couple of years.
Taking back control of your roadmap. I think that's a great topic, Tomás. Thanks for pulling it together. I think the bottom line question is, right, who's driving this? Are you driving is it a vendor-driven roadmap, or is it a business-driven roadmap? I'll leave you guys with that.
Well, Vinnie, Harry, I like your wisdom at the end there. Thank you very much. We will be back in a few weeks' time with another episode. Stay tuned. Looking forward to seeing everybody. It'll be a little bit chillier out there in this part of the world, but it won't be. It'll still be nice. It'll still be optimistic. We'll see you then. Take care. Bye-bye.